Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, coin collectors and enthusiasts. If you're someone who loves digging into the fascinating world of rare coins, you're in for a real treat today. We're about to take a close look at a coin that may be hiding right under your nose, and it could be worth a small fortune. That's right, today we're diving into the 1971 Washington quarter dollar. This coin might seem like any other quarter at first glance, but if you look a little closer, you'll see that it has some hidden potential that could make it incredibly valuable. Stick with me, and you might just find yourself with a coin worth thousands. Let's start by setting the stage. The 1971 Washington quarter was minted as part of a long-standing tradition in U.S. coinage, with George Washington's image gracing the obverse side of the coin and a majestic eagle adorning the reverse. These coins were produced in huge numbers, so it might be tempting to think that they're nothing more than another piece of pocket change. But here's the thing, there's a lot more going on with this particular coin than you might expect. The 1971 quarter is part of a series that falls within a pivotal era in U.S. history, right at the tail end of the 60s and heading into the 70s. The U.S. was transitioning economically and socially, and the coinage of the time reflects a period of stability and change. Despite this, what makes the 1971 Washington quarter special isn't just its historical context, it's the potential rarity and errors that collectors love to search for. Now, let's talk about what really makes this coin stand out: errors. Minting errors are a huge deal in the world of numismatics, and they can turn an otherwise ordinary coin into a highly sought-after treasure. There are a couple of specific errors to look out for with the 1971 Washington quarter, and they could seriously bump up the value of your coin. First, let's talk about one of the most coveted types of error, the double die error. This happens when the die used to stamp the coin strikes the blank planchet more than once, but slightly off-center. This results in a doubling effect on the design, and you can often see the doubling on the date, letters, and even parts of the image. If you have a 1971 quarter with a noticeable double die error, you're sitting on something special. Collectors absolutely love these kinds of mistakes because they're unique, and they make the coin feel like a true piece of history with a twist. But wait, there's more. Another error that can make a 1971 Washington quarter really stand out is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is misaligned during the minting process, causing the coin to strike off-center, sometimes leaving part of the design completely missing. An off-center strike adds character to a coin and can make it a really interesting find for collectors. The more pronounced the error, the more valuable the coin can become. If you stumble upon a 1971 Washington quarter with a significant off-center strike, you might want to get it appraised because it could easily be worth far more than the typical quarter. Aside from these minting errors, another factor that can increase the value of the 1971 Washington quarter is its condition. Like most coins, the better the condition, the more valuable it becomes. Coins that are well preserved, free from scratches or heavy wear, and show minimal signs of circulation are highly prized by collectors. If you have a 1971 quarter that is in uncirculated condition or looks almost as good as the day it was minted, you're looking at something rare and desirable. A coin with minimal signs of use can fetch a much higher price at auction or in the collector's market. So, now the question is, what's this coin worth? If you have a 1971 Washington quarter in top-notch condition, or better yet, one with a minting error like a double die or off-center strike, the value can really soar. After all, we're talking about a coin that was produced in large numbers but is now becoming increasingly difficult to find in pristine condition or with noticeable errors. In fact, a well-preserved 1971 Washington quarter with significant errors has been known to reach an impressive $74,500. Yes, you heard that right, $74,500. That's the kind of price you could be looking at if you've got one of these rare and valuable coins in your collection or find one out in the wild. It's amazing to think that a quarter from 1971, which was once just a standard piece of currency, could be worth so much today. That's the beauty of coin collecting. You never know what treasures you might have right in your pocket. So, whether you're a seasoned collector or just getting started, remember to keep an eye out for these rare and valuable coins. And who knows? Maybe the next time you check your change, you'll come across a 1971 Washington quarter that's worth far more than you ever expected. Today, we have something truly intriguing for all of you collectors out there. We're going to take a close look at the 1973 Washington quarter dollar. It's a coin that, on the surface, might seem like just another ordinary quarter, but trust me, this one has hidden value that can blow your mind. The 1973 Washington quarter was minted during a fascinating time in American history. The United States was in the middle of the 70s, a period of economic change and social transformation. Coinage from this era is often overlooked, but it's precisely the coins from this time that can carry significant value for the right collector. What makes the 1973 Washington quarter stand out isn't just its design, but also its potential to hide rare errors or simply be in a condition that can set it apart from the hundreds of thousands of others that were minted. Let's first talk about the design of this iconic coin. On the obverse, you have George Washington, whose likeness has graced the U.S. quarter for more than 80 years by the time this coin was struck. His image is surrounded by the inscription Liberty, along with the year of mintage, 1973, and the familiar, In God We Trust, motto. On the reverse, the quarter features an eagle, wings spread, perched atop a bundle of arrows and an olive branch, with the inscription United States of America and E Pluribus Unum. At first glance, everything seems standard. But here's where things get interesting. While many of the 1973 quarters were struck and circulated without incident, there are a number of factors that can make a specific coin stand out. These factors can sometimes make the difference between a coin being worth just a few cents and one that could be worth thousands. So, if you're a coin collector or you're just starting out, it's important to know what to look for when it comes to the 1973 Washington quarter. One of the most common ways a 1973 quarter can become more valuable is through minting errors. Errors are what make coins like this so sought after by collectors. Let's take a look at a few of the most valuable errors you might encounter with this quarter. The first one to keep an eye out for is the double die error. This occurs when the coin's die strikes the planchet more than once, leaving a doubling effect on the design. You might notice this most clearly on the date, the lettering, or even on Washington's image. These double dies are highly collectible because they're rare and make the coin much more unique. If you find a 1973 quarter with a double die error, it could be worth much more than its face value. In fact, this error alone can boost the coin's value significantly, especially if it's in excellent condition. Another error to look out for is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet isn't properly aligned in the press during the minting process, resulting in a coin that's struck off-center. You may see part of the coin's design missing or the edge of the coin being thicker on one side. Off-center coins are always exciting for collectors because they're one-of-a-kind and add a distinct character to any collection. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin can become, and then, of course, there's the overall condition of the coin. As with all collectible coins, the better the condition, the higher the value. Most of the 1973 quarters that were released into circulation have been used, worn down, and show signs of wear. But if you manage to find one that's been well preserved, with sharp details and minimal wear, you've found a gem. Uncirculated coins or those in high mint state can command impressive prices, as collectors are always searching for the best examples of each year. Now, let's talk about the value. You might be wondering, how much is this coin really worth? Well, if you happen to find a 1973 Washington quarter with a minting error like the double die or off-center strike, or simply in excellent condition, you could be looking at a potential value of $70,700. That's right, $70,700. It's amazing how a simple quarter from 1973, which most people would toss into their pocket change, could hold such a high value today. Coins like these have become prized treasures for collectors, and a well-preserved, error-free specimen could still fetch a significant amount. So, whether you're new to collecting or you're a seasoned pro, remember to keep an eye out for the 1973 Washington quarter. It's a coin that's both historically interesting and, in the right condition or with the right error, can be worth a small fortune. Always check your change, and who knows? You could be sitting on a treasure chest of rare coins, just waiting to be discovered. Today, we have an absolute gem to talk about, the 1997 Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, this coin might appear to be just another standard piece of US currency. However, if you dig a little deeper, you'll see that there's so much more than meets the eye. In fact, this 1997 quarter might just be sitting in your collection, or even in your pocket change, waiting for you to recognize its true value. Let's start with some background information. The 1997 Washington quarter was minted during a time when the US economy was doing well, and coin collectors were already beginning to appreciate the rarity and uniqueness of certain coins. By this point, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for decades, but this particular year holds a special place in the world of coin collecting due to the possible errors that can be found and its overall scarcity. Before we get into those valuable details, let's take a moment to look at the design of the 1997 Washington quarter. On the obverse, you'll find the iconic portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States, as designed by John Flanagan. His image is surrounded by the inscriptions, Liberty, the year of minting, 1997, and the well-known motto, In God We Trust. Flip the coin over to the reverse, and you'll see the familiar image of the eagle, with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows and an olive branch. This design is the hallmark of the Washington Quarter series, and it's one that has remained mostly unchanged over the years. However, the story of this coin doesn't stop there. What really makes the 1997 Washington Quarter interesting is the potential for errors and the rarity of certain variations. These errors can dramatically increase the value of the coin, making it much more valuable than you might expect. Let's take a look at a few of these rare finds that could have you looking at your 1997 quarters in an entirely new light. One of the most sought-after errors in coin collecting is the double die error. This occurs when the coin's die strikes the planchet, or blank coin, more than once, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. This can be seen most clearly on the date, lettering, and even Washington's portrait. If you happen to find a 1997 quarter with this double die error, you've stumbled upon something incredibly rare and valuable. These types of errors are often sought after by collectors because they are limited in number and can add a lot of character to the coin. In fact, a 1997 Washington quarter with a double die could easily be worth hundreds, if not thousands, more than its face value. Another potential error to keep an eye out for is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is struck off-center during the minting process, meaning that part of the coin's design gets cut off or displaced. The result is a unique, misaligned coin with a very distinct appearance. These off-center errors are incredibly collectible and can fetch premium prices, especially if the misalignment is particularly noticeable. The more dramatic the error, the higher the value, but it's not just mint errors that can make a 1997 Washington quarter valuable. Even coins in mint state condition, without any major errors, can still be worth significantly more than their face value. A quarter that is well preserved, with sharp, clear details and little to no wear, is highly desirable among collectors. Uncirculated examples of the 1997 Washington quarter are rarer than you might think, as many of them have been through years of circulation and wear. If you manage to find one of these pristine specimens, you could be holding on to a coin that is far more valuable than you initially thought. Now, let's talk about what you've all been waiting for, the value. If you find a 1997 Washington quarter that features one of these rare errors, or simply one in outstanding condition, the coin could be worth $68,500. That's right, $68,500. This is a price that most people would never expect for a simple quarter, but when you find a coin with an error or in mint condition, the value can skyrocket. So, if you have any 1997 Washington quarters lying around in your collection or tucked away in your coin jar, it might be time to take a closer look. With the potential for rare minting errors and the allure of coins in excellent condition, this seemingly ordinary quarter could turn out to be a collector's dream. Remember, it's not just about having a coin, but having the right coin. And who knows? That 1997 Washington quarter you have could be a hidden treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, always check your change, and keep hunting for those rare finds. Today, we're diving into a coin that you may not have given much thought to, the 1986 Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it might seem like just another modern coin, but trust me, there's more to this quarter than meets the eye. In fact, if you're a true coin enthusiast, you'll want to stick around because this coin could be worth far more than you might expect. Let's start by talking about the basics of this quarter. The 1986 Washington quarter was part of the ongoing series of quarters that have featured the iconic portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The design, created by John Flanagan, has been used for decades, and its classic simplicity is what makes this coin so recognizable. On the obverse, you'll see Washington's image along with the words, Liberty, the year, 1986, and the ever-important motto, In God We Trust. On the reverse, there's a depiction of an eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, a symbol of strength and freedom, along with the words, E pluribus unum and United States of America. So, what makes the 1986 Washington quarter so special? Well, for starters, this particular year was during a time of relatively stable production at the U.S. Mint, but that doesn't mean the coin doesn't have its unique characteristics. One of the key factors that can make a coin particularly valuable is the presence of errors during the minting process. And yes, even a Washington quarter from 1986 could have errors that increase its worth exponentially. Let's get into some of these rare and valuable mistakes you'll want to keep your eyes peeled for. First up, we have the double die error, which is one of the most sought-after mistakes in the world of coin collecting. This occurs when a coin's die strikes the blank planchet multiple times, causing the design to appear doubled or ghosted in certain areas. In the case of the 1986 Washington quarter, this doubling is most often seen on the date or the word Liberty. These subtle but noticeable errors can be quite valuable, especially if they're on coins that are still in great condition. So, if you happen to find a 1986 quarter with this error, you're looking at a coin that could fetch a much higher price than its face value. Another common error to watch out for on these quarters is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be cut off. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these coins can be worth significantly more than standard quarters, as collectors are always on the lookout for unique misprints like this one. An off-center 1986 Washington quarter is a rare find and could be a valuable addition to any collection. Now, let's talk about another factor that can increase the value of a coin: condition. As with most collectible coins, the better the condition, the higher the potential value. Many coins from the 1980s, like the 1986 quarter, have been in circulation for decades, meaning most of them have been subjected to wear and tear. If you can find a 1986 Washington quarter in uncirculated, pristine condition, it could be worth a pretty penny. These high-quality specimens are much rarer than you might think, and collectors are always on the lookout for coins that have been well preserved, and here's where it gets really exciting. When we talk about coins that carry significant errors or are in exceptional condition, their value can skyrocket. So, if you're lucky enough to own one of these 1986 Washington quarters with a minting error or in flawless condition, you're looking at a coin worth $73,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $73,000. Now, let that sink in for a moment. A simple quarter, one that you might have overlooked or tossed into your change jar, could potentially be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, the next time you come across a 1986 Washington quarter, be sure to check it closely. You might just have a hidden treasure on your hands. Remember, coin collecting is all about knowing what to look for and having the patience to find those rare and valuable pieces. The 1986 Washington quarter is one of those coins that might not immediately stand out, but with a little knowledge and a sharp eye, you could be holding on to a real gem. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the 1986 Washington quarter. Today we're diving into a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance but holds incredible value for those with a keen eye for rare finds. We're talking about the 1978 Washington quarter, a seemingly simple piece of currency with a lot more to offer than most people realize. Now, at first, you might think, it's just a quarter from the late 70s, but I assure you, there's a lot of potential hidden in this coin. Many collectors are constantly on the lookout for this very coin because of its rarity, its errors, and its unique history. So if you're a coin lover, this is one you absolutely want to pay attention to. Let's start with the basics. The 1978 Washington quarter is part of the classic series that has been in production since 1932. It features the iconic portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, facing left. Beneath his image, you'll see the words, Liberty, and the motto, In God We Trust, while the year of mintage, 1978, is inscribed just below Washington's neck. On the reverse side of the coin, there's the traditional eagle perched on an olive branch with the inscription, E Pluribus Unum, and United States of America. So, what makes the 1978 Washington quarter so special? Well, although this coin was struck in fairly large numbers, it's the rarity and condition that make this coin so desirable for collectors. During the 1970s, the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a rapid pace, and many of them were heavily circulated. This means that finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is becoming more and more challenging, but there's more to it than just wear and tear. The value of the 1978 Washington quarter is also driven by its potential to have rare minting errors. And here's where things get really interesting for coin collectors. One of the most sought-after errors in the world of numismatics is the double die error. This occurs when a coin's die is misaligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be doubled or misprinted. On the 1978 Washington quarter, you might spot this doubling on the word Liberty or the date itself. If you're lucky enough to find a 1978 Washington quarter with this error, it could make a significant difference in its value. Collectors are always eager to get their hands on error coins, and the more prominent the doubling, the higher the demand. Another rare error you might encounter is the off-center strike, which happens when the coin is not aligned properly during the minting process. If you happen to come across a 1978 Washington quarter with part of the design missing or shifted, you could be holding onto a coin worth much more than face value. Off-center errors are highly collectible because they're unique, and no two are exactly alike. Now, let's talk about the coin's condition. As with any collectible item, the better the condition, the more valuable the coin. The 1978 Washington quarter was minted in high numbers, and most of them were circulated. That means they've likely experienced some wear and tear, scratches, dings, and faded details. However, if you find a 1978 Washington quarter in near-perfect condition, one that has been kept in a protective holder or has never been used, you could be looking at a substantial increase in value. Coins like these are more difficult to come by, which makes them highly sought after by collectors, but here's where it gets really exciting. When we talk about error coins, rare variants, and coins in flawless condition, the value can skyrocket. So, if you have a 1978 Washington quarter with a minting error or it's in uncirculated condition, you might be looking at a price tag of $78,200. Yes, you heard me right, $78,200. So, what does that mean for you as a collector? If you've ever wondered about the value of your coin collection, or if you've stumbled upon a 1978 Washington quarter in your change jar, it's time to take a closer look. A coin like this could be worth much more than you might think, especially if it has a rare minting error or is in pristine condition. This is one of the many reasons why coin collecting is such a thrilling hobby. The hunt for rare and valuable coins is what keeps collectors coming back for more. The 1978 Washington quarter might seem like a simple coin at first, but with the right eye for detail, you could have a true treasure on your hands. I hope this video has inspired you to take a second look at your own collections and check for any of these rare minting errors or pristine examples of the 1978 Washington quarter. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating coins in American history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more exciting coin discoveries. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.